I'm going to put a second version.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'll let you. I'll add
Jeremy,
that one to the group too. Oh, do you guys prefer this split screen mode or this split screen mode?
well, it's up to you. I can't see my face.
True. I guess most people seem to prefer this one, so we'll go with that one. All right. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. We're going to do another movie chat on Inglourious Basterds, which is an awesome Quentin Tarantino film. Obviously, we talked about Pulp Fiction before, which is my favorite movie and my favorite Tarantino film. And I rewatched this one recently because, like I was telling you guys, I watch a war movie every Remembrance Day, which is Veterans Day for Americans, obviously. And Inglourious Basterds is one of my favorite ones. And yeah, it's just an awesome Tarantino film about Jewish Nazi hunters and a deception plan and secret plot to assassinate Hitler, and done in Tarantino style, of course. So, what do you guys think of the movie overall to start us off?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I, like you, just recently rewatched it again. I hadn't seen it in a while, so I'd say it's up there as far as Tarantino films go for me. I want to place it at maybe number 2, Pulp Fiction being number 1. Um, well, it's hard to say. It's like Reservoir Dogs kind of is tied with it at number 2, but it could either be 2 or 3 for me. Um, yeah, great movie. I mean, any movie that involves uh, the slaughtering a bunch of Nazis in a very evil and kind of fun way, ripping off the scalps is, even just that is going to be down up my alley for sure.
Yeah.
And
Uh-oh.
Are you testing your sound there, Dusty?
That was the second device.
Oh, okay.
yeah, great film. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It follows in the line with kind of Tarantino's, a bunch of long scenes. Dramatic, starts off with the super dramatic scene of the Nazi officer coming to the old barn home, and the guys hiding Jewish family underneath the floorboard. So lots of intense but good scenes, long scenes, long dialogue, which I enjoy. And also a lot of humor too. That kind of black underlying humor, which I always appreciate from Tarantino. So yeah, it's up there for as one of his best for me, maybe 2 or 3. But yeah, it's a great film overall.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure where I would rank it in my Tarantino films. I'm not sure what I would say is my second favorite because, like you, there are so many that I like so much. Like this one might be my second favorite too. Reservoir Dogs, which you mentioned, is obviously awesome, and I don't know. I think the other one that's the contender for what I would put as second place for Tarantino is Django Unchained. I like that one. I love that one too. And yeah, I was noticing, like, I notice more and more each time I watch Inglorious Bastards that it's like 90% dialogue, like you were mentioning. Like that's one of the things that Tarantino does. His movies seem more violent than they actually are, which he's so good at doing. And it's mostly dialogue, but when there is violence, it's really gratuitous and like glorified almost. And that dark humor too is great. Like some of the stuff with Hans Landa has some humor aspect to it. And when they're in that bar in the basement and they're trying to conceal the fact that they're actually Jews and they're pretending to be Nazis. And especially, like, I was telling Dusty this too, every time at the very end of it, when I forget what his character's name is, when Brad Pitt's character, he carves the swastika into Hans Landa's forehead, and in the very last shot he says, "You know what, Udvik? I think this is my masterpiece." It makes me like smile with a really twisted sense of joy at the end of it.
Yeah, Lieutenant Aldo Rain is played by Brad Pitt.
Yes.
Have you seen the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood yet?
No, I haven't yet. Have you?
Yeah, I just watched that recently. About 2 nights ago. We'll probably have to do another chat on that maybe one day down the road. But
For
also,
sure.
very good film. I highly recommend seeing it, especially if you enjoyed this one. Same kind of thing, long dialogue, lots of underlying black humor. And one other thing I forgot to add is there's always like a actor or actress that really steps up and kind of just like kills it and does a great job. And this one, I think it's Christopher Waltz is the first time we kind of see him, and he plays a great role in this. And I was going to just say that Leonardo DiCaprio is really good in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I won't talk much about it, obviously, because you haven't seen it. But yeah, same with like Pulp Fiction. There was that John Travolta and what's his name?
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, thank you. Really did a very good job acting in those. So Tarantino he always has these long dialogue during his movies, but the actors, for some reason, he brings out the best in in some actors that they just happen to do these great little scenes here and there. So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, Christoph Waltz. This was like again with that thing that Tarantino does sometimes, like reviving John Travolta's career in a way with Pulp Fiction and turning it in a different direction. He sort of did that with Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Basterds. It was like his first major North American debut. He had done a lot of German films before then, and then now he's been in so many other major films since then, including that he was the main Bond villain in Spectre. It was, yeah. And yeah, I'll definitely have to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we'll have to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, it's you're right. It was he's really good at reviving these careers of these guys that I never heard of Christoph Waltz before Inglourious Basterds, but it was almost like his coming out party where he he just found this like hidden gem of an actor. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think didn't he get nominated for an Academy Award for his performance during?
I think he might have. I'm gonna double check that right now, but I think he might be right. Yeah. So,
but yeah, great actor.
Yeah, definitely. He's like I was telling Dusty like last week or something like that. It's so it makes him seem so much more evil that he's so polite until the very moment when he's actually killing Jews and like when he kills Bridget von Hammersmark. I got a little bit of an echo there for a sec, but it's gone now. And yeah, it just makes him seem so much more. It's such a better villain because it's like almost totally different from what you would expect from a traditional villain.
Yeah, I just checked, by the way, and he did win a Golden Globe as well as Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor for that role. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah. So obviously we weren't the only ones that thought that too.
Oh, okay. Cool. So what do you think about the movie in general, Dusty?
Well, I think for one, Tarantino makes awesome revenge plots.
Yeah.
He's very good at establishing like the opening scene that makes you want to just kill the guy right then and there.
Yeah.
And then the payoffs are usually good. And this one, the payoff is a little bit different. Like the main bad guy doesn't die. He almost gets away with it.
That's true.
Until all those like, you're never going to be able to take off that uniform.
Yeah.
He brand. So I think overall it's good. I don't think I put it number 2 because I definitely like Django Unchained more.
You still there, Dusty?
Yeah, I was checking to see if I was going to sound robotic because I was in the elevator.
Okay.
But I would probably, because I would put Pulsion above it. I put Django Unchained above it. I don't know, maybe, as I know Kill Bill is not like his best stuff.
Yeah, especially Volume 2.
I really like it. I really like the first one. So I don't know, I probably put it on par with Kill Bill.
Cool. Yeah, it's interesting what you said about the ending. It's like they still kill Hitler and all of the Nazi high command in like a blaze of glory, basically. But the main villain,
I don't even consider that part though the revenge plot. Like for me, the revenge plot totally hinges around Landa, because the opening scene kind of establishes the reason for revenge. Yeah, there's Hitler and everything, and everyone wants to kill Hitler, but Landa makes it more personal by being there and actually initiating like the action that actually what's her name?
Shoshana, I forget her last name.
Yeah, that she basically risked her life, and everybody risks their life to complete their mission. So I think the Landa plot is like the main revenge plot there.
Yeah, that's one thing that's really interesting too. Like Hitler definitely is not the main villain, and he's a very secondary character too. That's an interesting aspect, like how Quentin Tarantino, he does a genre film but does it totally different. Like in this war movie, it's mostly dialogue, and Hitler, he isn't even the main villain, which is interesting because given what you said, Shoshana, she gets revenge on Hitler and all the Nazis high command, but she doesn't get any revenge on Hans Landa. I never really thought about that before, actually, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, and another weird thing too is that the plots in the movie are completely contrary to history.
Oh yeah, it's definitely alternative history. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, Hitler gets turned into mincemeat by a machine gun. You know, that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
It would have been awesome, but no, it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good story, right? That's why it's so much more interesting.
I sometimes think Tarantino...
Yeah, they play with history a little bit. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
I think Tarantino, he kind of like, cause he does this a little bit in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where he just like gives his own version of what he would have liked happened instead. Do you know what I mean? Or like a different take on something. Yeah, like World War II, or in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's case, it's the Manson murders. But yeah, it's almost like, okay, that didn't happen, but this is what I would like to have seen happen.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you could think of that for Django Unchained, for example, too. Like, it's a black slave getting freed and then becoming a bounty hunter for criminals, and then also getting revenge on a whole bunch of slave owners, and eventually like blowing up the main slave owner guy's mansion.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure whether something like that actually happened in history, but I bet it was probably rare if it did happen.
Well, there were definitely slave revolts, but I don't know if any of it went down the way it's portrayed in Django Unchained. I think it's more military action rather than a lone ex-slave going up to a plantation and just tearing everybody apart.
Yeah, probably. It's interesting. Some of the smaller roles in this movie, and well, like for example, he's a little bit bigger, but the Bear Jew played by Eli Roth. It's cool that it seems pretty obvious that Quentin Tarantino just kind of put him in that movie because he's a fan of Eli Roth and their buddies, and he loves that movie Cabin Fever that he made, for example. And I remember hearing about this when the movie was coming out, that Eli Roth, he's naturally like a skinny guy, so he gained like 30 pounds or something of muscle to play the Bear Jew. And then there's like that little cameo of Mike Myers too, where he plays a
Well,
serious
he basically took steroids because nobody realistically can gain 30 pounds of muscle that quickly.
Well, I don't know how quickly he gained it. Do you?
Well, if it's like if it took him less than 3 years to do that, then he was definitely juicing.
I don't know about I mean it's probably true that he was juicing or doing something like that, but I think it could be like you could gain that much muscle in half that amount of time, maybe like a year and a half without
30 pounds?
damage to organs or something like that. I think you probably could.
30 pounds is a lot.
Dude, I went from when I first started getting serious about powerlifting, I was just lifting heavy ass weights 3 or 4 times a week and eating like it was my fucking job. And I went from 170 to 230 over like a year and a half, and I didn't use roids or anything like that. And I'm a naturally really skinny guy.
Okay, I could see that. But was it all muscle that you gained, or was it muscle and other weight, water weight?
Especially when I was competing in powerlifting, I had a power gut too.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah.
And we're using like creatine or anything like that?
I did use it sometimes, but I don't think I used it most of the time.
Yeah, because doesn't that help you retain? Yeah,
It gives you water weight.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. I definitely was eating like tons and tons and tons of carbs too.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably just burning through all that energy. That's why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Eli wasn't like super huge, so
yeah,
I don't think he was doing roids, but I don't think he gained like 30 pounds of pure muscle either.
No. There's a few camera angles that make him look bigger too. Like if you notice, they put the camera right on the floor facing up, and he hovers over, so it looks like he's bigger too in a few of the scenes. So
that's similar to once I found out how big Tom Hardy actually was when he played Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. It's hard to be quite as fooled by some of the deceptive camera tactics, because he looks like he's at least 6 feet tall and 250 in the movie, but in reality, Tom Hardy bulked up to 190, and I think he's 5'9". So that's really deceptive in that movie too, like way more so.
Wow.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
Mike Myers is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just going back to the movie here. Not like a comedic role at all for him. Just a quick cameo. I think he's a British general or something. Kind of just given, I forget his name, but kind of just breaking down what he's going to be doing in his role and stuff like that. But yeah, I wonder, I don't know what the story is, but I wonder if like Myers wanted to be in a Tarantino film, or vice versa, if Tarantino really liked Myers and just wanted him to be in a film. So
yeah, I don't know.
It's an interesting casting choice, that's for sure.
That's
Yeah, it really
And
is.
it's not like Myers is has been in any
He's not as big as he used to be, that's for sure.
True, or he's not even in other Tarantino films. I don't think this is just like a one-off. So
yeah,
Well, maybe he cast it, and there's like a casting call. Who knows? It's kind of. I wonder how they got him specifically to do that role.
yeah, it's a good question.
Or maybe they talked. Maybe they knew each other. I don't know. It's a interesting selection.
Yeah, Mike Myers is really good with accents too, but it's almost like hard to take him seriously because I keep expecting him to break out into an Austin Powers impression or something like that.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, you're almost waiting for him to tell a joke of some sort.
Yeah. Yeah, to latch on to what Mike Myers' role there, Michael Fassbender's role is really interesting too, even though it's only for a short part of the movie.
Well, it's a short part, but it's also a significant part, right?
Yeah, really significant. Yeah. That whole
he totally screwed the mission up.
Exactly. Yeah, by ordering 3 drinks this instead of the German way like that, right? Yeah.
Well, even I cringed when they ordered whiskey. It's like, why are you ordering whiskey?
Yeah.
Everyone else is ordering schnapps.
Yeah. That whole scene in the bar is great too. Like that underlying tension that you can almost feel, and them being sucked into the game, and those Nazis being there unexpectedly because that guy's kid was just born, and them playing that game with putting the cards on their forehead, and you have to play 20 questions and try to guess who it is, and then that part at the end where they've got their guns pointed at each other's balls, and then it breaks out into a massacre.
Yeah, something bad is going to go down. It's just like how is it going to end up at the end? That's what I got at it anyway.
And plus, of course, there's the obligatory Tarantino Mexican standoff in that part too.
Yeah, true.
It was just such a bad setup, though, for a meeting. Like, the logistical nightmare that ensued could have been totally avoided. But then again, that wouldn't have made an interesting movie.
Yeah, for sure. Like, they shouldn't have let Bridget von Hammersmark set up the meeting place, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. And they could have got out of that so easily. She could have been just like, let's go to another bar or something. But
yeah.
Yeah, and I also thought that sorry, I forget his name again. Michael Fassbender. Sorry, he got angry really quick with that general too, which is like, that I don't know, if you're trying to be inconspicuous, you could have went about it a little easier.
It's like, he's basically like, this is none of your business. Get out of here.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Which is like you're making it. I don't know. You're making it obvious in a way, but yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was he was in too much of a rush and it made him nervous or something like that. Who knows? At least his character, anyway.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So
that was a good scene.
Yeah, for sure. It's one of my
the best scene in the movie, arguably.
Yeah,
for sure. And some of those other dialogue scenes that are really good are the ones when Shoshana is being courted by Franz Zoller, that famous Nazi war hero, and especially that scene where he kidnaps her, takes her to the restaurant, and she's in a meeting with the Jew hunter Hans Landa. It's almost like I'm curious about what you guys think about that scene, because it almost seems like I almost get the sense that he knows her true identity, but is not revealing it to her to just make her even more nervous or something. And he's playing. It's almost like he's playing 4D chess or something like that, with his plan to help them along with their plot in order to escape from the death of the Nazis with his life. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, that's like it's one of those scenes that you'll never know. A dead giveaway in that scene is when he says to her, "Hold up a minute, don't eat it yet. Wait for the cream." Apparently, cream in that era, like Jewish people were not allowed to eat it, or it was frowned upon, or something like that. So the fact that he even says to her, "Wait for the cream, it's the best part,"
Yeah,
kind of gives the viewer, if you're aware of history, or if you're aware of, or if you've been paying attention, does he know that she's the one that escaped in the first scene, or you know what I mean? It's kind of, it never comes out, obviously, but you're always left with that,
yeah. I
And
love that.
Tarantino does that a bunch in this movie too. There's like the Brad Pitt character. I don't know if you noticed, but he's got a rope, like kind of like he was been hung or something like that, scar around his neck,
Yeah.
that they show, but they never talk about it at all throughout the whole entire movie.
Yeah, I love that. Like,
Yeah, he has a Matt Coffin scar.
Yeah, that's right. So
Yeah.
and Tarantino does that a bunch of times in his films, where he puts in like almost as if a plot with no dialogue, but leaves it up to the viewer to kind of figure out, I wonder what happened there. Was Lando, or sorry, Brad Pitt's character, was he a hero at one point, or did he try to commit suicide, or you know what I mean? While you're paying attention to the movie, you have other things to think about as well, which is, part of Tarantino's brilliance.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Well said. It's like the golden suitcase in Pulp
Yes,
Fiction.
that's right. What's inside it the whole time,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you were saying, yeah, maybe Aldo was punished, maybe he tried to kill himself, who knows. I actually when I first noticed that, I thought it almost looked like someone unsuccessfully slit his throat and he still lived or something like that, but it probably him being hung is more likely. That, and
Did he ever mention that he was lynched or something? I thought he mentioned something like that.
Did he?
I could be wrong.
I don't think he did, but he could have. And with the scene with Shoshana and Hans Landa too, I think if I remember correctly, he orders drinks for both of them, and he orders her a glass of milk.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. He does. Yeah,
That's another big clue there too. That makes me think it's almost like he knows who she really is, to like subtly remind her of that.
Oh, because he asked for milk. Maybe that's his thing now. Maybe he just loves milk.
No, I think he ordered, if I remember correctly, I think he ordered an espresso or something like that for himself, and a milk for her.
Oh, really?
I don't think he ordered a milk for himself. I think that was a thing to hearken her memory back to when he ordered milk when he was at that house when he slaughtered the entire family.
I heard that.
What?
That's a urinal.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a few times where that colonel or army guy played by Christoph Waltz, he does a few kind of subtle things. The other one too is at the beginning of the movie, when he's talking to in meeting the family and the girls or something like that, there's one point where he's holding on to the girl's like wrist, almost like to check her pulse to see if she's nervous right now. So there's little things yeah, and he orders the milk there, and then he orders the milk again with her, the cream. There's a bunch of subtle things that Christoph Waltz does. And I don't know if he did that himself or if Tarantino obviously pushed him to do that, but yeah, there's a bunch of little things in there, and then that you don't probably pick up the first time. You'd have to watch it a few times in order to get.
Yeah, that's.
Go ahead. I would say that I think any French civilian would be nervous meeting with high-ranking Nazis.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know. That's like, I think she would be nervous whether it was him or somebody else.
Yeah.
At least a little bit nervous.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, you and I were talking about this earlier, Dusty, but that whole thing with Franz Zoller, where he's trying to get with Shoshana, is interesting too. Obviously, like building that tension of her being really fucking against Nazis, obviously, and like what you were saying with how he gets killed at the end, where she shoots him and then she almost feels remorse, and then he it's revealed when she rolls him over that he was having a gun and he shoots her. I think you brought up some interesting points of how that seems like inconsistent, but it kind of makes sense if she has remorse about it. Like even though he's a Nazi, she's never taken a human life before, so it causes like instant remorse for her. What do you guys think about that whole subplot?
I'd say I understand the remorse part, especially if she's never killed anyone before. Of course, that's going to be really shocking. I just thought it was strange that she would roll him over. And I guess, she doesn't know that you got to shoot somebody in the head, I guess. But still, what was she expecting to find by rolling him over? That was just weird. Like, I don't know. I just don't think normal people would just roll someone over that they just shot. I just don't think. Like, nobody would confirm that way. The way you confirm is by shooting somebody in the head, basically.
I kind of think it was meant to convey that she was feeling bad about doing that, and she wanted to turn him over to to express sympathy for him and be there with him when she dies, because she feels so bad about it. Like what sometimes happens in war movies, but not usually with your enemy.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's. I guess there's the point that he obviously liked her, and she used that to his disadvantage and manipulated him. But then again, like, he's a freaking Nazi.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know why she would have remorse considering his hardcore allegiance to being a Nazi.
Well, other than that, I mean, I think that yeah, he's a Nazi, but that's like the overlap. That's the main thing that like on the surface, he's a good-looking guy. He's a war hero. Obviously, people love him. He's famous. They set this character up for you to be like, if he wasn't a Nazi, this girl would be falling flat on her ass for this guy. You know what I mean? He's checks all those boxes as being the perfect mate, except for the fact that he's a Nazi. And I think in a way, it's kind of like, you could be such an awesome guy, you know what I mean? But if you associate with an evil, yeah, it's a weird dynamic, those two. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's what
It's like they never like fall in love, but they're never like, they're kind of respected until the end, until she shoots him. But was she just using him to get everybody there because she wanted to burn down the whole theater too? So it's a weird dynamic. If they weren't involved in a war, you could see these two possibly dating if she wasn't with the projectionist. But obviously him being a Nazi overshadows everything else.
Well, I don't think she had any feelings for him at all. I think it was completely transactional and manipulative, and the relationship only existed so that she could do what she wanted to do in the end. Because you got to remember, she already had a mate, a boyfriend that the Nazis would probably kill in the wrong situation. So I don't think she liked him at
No,
all, or even had any romantic feelings.
I don't think she liked him either. Obviously, he liked her, but there's no way for her to even like him at all because he is a Nazi. Do you know what I mean? It's almost as if there's this big barrier between the two. But on the other side of that barrier, he just happens to be a war hero, a famous guy, and everybody loves him on the other side. So,
Yeah,
not that that's attractive to a majority of women, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. Like he's like it's almost like they sort of try to humanize him in the movie because even, for example, when he's at the screening, there's that part he goes to see Shoshana because he feels bad. He can't handle watching himself murder all those people that he supposedly did from the sniper tower. So even he feels remorse about it. And what do you think? What do you guys think is the reason? Why do you think that he likes Shoshana so much and is like incessantly pestering her? And even though she
Well, she's
clearly doesn't
definitely
like
good looking.
Yeah, that's true. Could be as simple as that.
Yeah, that and she's like small town, not popular, loves the cinema. He is he seems like he's sick of the spotlight in some way. Or maybe
You
he's not.
probably need to pursue someone that didn't know who he was
Yeah,
to
that's another.
see. He probably has all these chicks all over him in Germany and whatnot. And he probably wanted to be the pursuer this time.
Yeah. Plus, with some guys too, if a girl pushes you away, it's almost like reverse psychology, right?
Yeah, there's a chase there, which makes it fun and eventful, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. So, I guess another important aspect to go over is the Inglourious Basterds themselves. I think they don't really, like, not all of them play that big of roles. I guess the ones who are in the bar scene with Bridget von Hammersmark, they play a big role, and the Bear Jew. And other than that, I don't really think that any of the rest of them, not including Aldo, of course, he plays the biggest role probably out of all of them. I don't think the rest of them play that big of a role. What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, they don't play that much of a role in the movie. There is that one German guy that they got who, yeah, who probably played a big role in exterminating Jews, but not so much, as far as lines go in the actual movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is it based on not a true story, but was there some unit in the American army that did the same kind of thing and scalped Nazis? Is it based on, any guys know?
Actually, when I was doing in my history of World War II class that I took 3 years ago for one of my papers that I was writing about Inglourious Basterds, so I did a little bit of research into it, and I seem to remember that it was loosely based on several different plots to assassinate Hitler, and they kind of combined those and then made them more, and then sensationalize them more. So it's kind of like stitching pieces of history together and then dramatizing it, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it seems like it could be plausible that this actually happened. I know it didn't, but it could have happened not just under a different, instead of Glorious Bastards, it could have been like, a section of the army that scalped Nazis and killed them, and that's
Yeah. I don't remember whether they actually exist. I seem to remember, though, that there was something like that, but they weren't anywhere near as successful or infamous. And I don't remember whether they scalped Nazis either.
Why did Tarantino misspell bastards?
Yeah,
I don't know. He did that on purpose. I think, if I remember correctly, this film is actually a remake of an earlier one that came out in the 70s.
Oh,
I
okay.
think that one was actually spelled that way too. I'm going to look that up right now. I think he might have just done it for that reason, but that's just my guess.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of things with Tarantino, like you're always left with why do you do this, why this, why, and those are never answered, which makes it again half the fun of going back to like Aldo and the next car and all those other things, and the briefcase in Pulp Fiction. These little things that Tarantino never answers or whatever kind of makes half of the fun of watching his films.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love all that ambiguity that he adds, so you can endlessly speculate about it. That's one of the great things about Tarantino. It's why he's great along with other directors too. Like one example I'm thinking of is The Shining with Kubrick, and he famously does that in a lot of his films, like 2001, for example. Also, there are all these like that. There's that documentary about The Shining called, I think it's called Room 237. I
Yeah, that's
started
right.
watching that once and I had to bail because it was so ridiculous. Like there are all these theories about how no, they're being possessed because they built the hotel on an ancient Indian burial ground, and then there's this stuff about the Illuminati and faking the moon landing and all sorts of theories like that. And of course, one of the obvious ones in 2001 is what the fuck is the obelisk and what the fuck is going on with it. So yeah, that's one of the things that I like about filmmakers in general, when they add that ambiguity to it.
Yeah, and those little Easter eggs that if you only pick up on if you're a fan. Not so many directors do that anymore. Maybe they do. I just don't notice it, or they don't make it as obvious. But yeah,
Yeah, I think like Christopher Nolan kind of does that in some of his movies too. Like the most well-known one I can think of is, of course, at the end of Inception, where you don't see whether the top that he spins stop spinning rather. You just see it kind of wobble a bit, so it sort of makes it completely ambiguous as to whether Leonardo DiCaprio's character's experience throughout the entire movie is real or is actually a dream in itself.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
What do you think about that ambiguity, Dusty?
The ambiguity of not knowing.
Yeah,
I think it's a good tool to use just to keep people thinking about something. Like I know in a lot of my favorite series, they use a lot of ambiguity, so that people go behind and come up with pet theories about what might be happening behind the scenes.
yeah.
Definitely keeps people talking at water coolers. It's a good tool to keep people interested in something past the shelf life of it.
Yeah, for sure. Because it can be a main reason that people endlessly go back to it and get more from it every time, right? Why you can watch it endlessly and still get more out of it. I just looked it up, by the way, and there was an original Inglourious Basterds in 1978, but it was spelled correctly. So I don't know why Quentin Tarantino spelled it incorrectly.
On the Wikipedia article, he says that he was inspired by the film, but it's not at all a remake.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which is probably why he misspelled it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a remake at all.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what are both of your guys' favorite scenes in this movie? I know. Would you say your favorite one is that bar scene you said, Dusty?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's in this movie that really, well, if we're going to talk about tension, I think the very first scene of the movie steals that. Like, it's an extremely tense scene. But I really like the way this scene plays out because there are different layers of tension. First, you got like the party of drunk dudes, and and then they have to contend with those guys to not blow their cover. Fassbender blows his top, and then there's like this Nazi officer that was hiding around the corner, and then we're thinking, okay, was he overhearing them? Did he actually listen to what they were saying? So, that builds more tension. And then once he pulls out the pistol, there's like a third layer of tension there. So, yeah, I really love in this movie how he plays with that. And I think this scene kind of like masters that out of all the others.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting too that I forget what his name is, but that bastard who was originally a Nazi and he started just killing a bunch of members of the Nazi high command, or maybe it was just Nazi officers by himself before he got recruited by the bastards. When he kills that guy, when it all goes awry or Ari, I don't know how you pronounce that word.
Awry.
When he shoots him in the balls, and then instead of turning around and shooting a whole bunch of other Nazis, he takes out his knife and stabs him a whole bunch of times, even though he's already dead. Maybe he wants to like get out some anger and revenge before he knows he's about to die.
Yeah, Stiglitz, he just is a brutal character. He's always sharpening his knife. So I think it was bound to happen that he was going to use his knife in some form or fashion on screen. And we got to see that when he was killing that Nazi officer.
Yeah, for sure. So what is your favorite scene, Chris?
Yeah, the first scene was probably the one that I like. I like the scenes where I'm kind of left going, where is this going, or left on edge. Are they gonna find the Jewish family under the floorboards? And I like, the suspension of it. But yeah, with the violence too, Tarantino, and he does this on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood too, where he has these super violent scenes, and so violent that like the machine gun bullets to the head of Hitler, for example, like so ridiculous that it's you're almost left laughing at how stupid it is or how silly it is. You know what I mean? And I know he does this on purpose, but it's I like those scenes. I also like the scenes where he kind of goes through real quick, and it's a quick change of pace. You start off with this slow scene, and when he's going through and he's kind of introducing the bastards and how they all came to be and that kind of stuff, and it's quick cut scenes of like him murdering other people and scalping, and then just like the introduction, I enjoyed that scene too. But yeah, the bar scene is good as well. The thing with like the bar scene for me, I was kind of left at that point, just like, oh, why don't you do this, or why don't you get up and leave, or not? Don't play the game. You know what I mean? In that scene, I was more like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or you know what I mean? It's like the typical, like when you watch a horror movie and the girl's sitting there and don't pick up the phone, or don't go in to answer the door or something like that. You just like you're sitting there left screaming at the TV when it's going to turn out bad. So but yeah, the first scene for sure. Yeah, and I like how they get him at the end and with just the swastika knife in the forehead. They don't outright just like kill him. He's kind of left with the scar to remind himself of how evil he was the whole time. And
yeah, I think that's my favorite part, just because it seems like he's gonna fucking get away with it, even though he's the main bad guy. And like, even though, like you pointed out, Dusty, he doesn't actually get killed, it still gives you a sense of revenge that he's getting the swastika carved into his forehead. And then plus earlier when the bear Jew is sitting next to him, when he carves it into that other Nazi's forehead, they don't actually show the knife carving into his forehead. They just show what it looks like after. And then the part at the end of the movie is when they actually show the detail of it too.
Yeah, I think in order for it to work, that revenge, he has to live for a long time. And he has to go to a place where people are going to hate him when they see that symbol. So, like, his fate kind of works out in that way. Because if he was just kind of killed, then I guess it's almost worse that he gets to live with a Nazi symbol on his head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's why I still get that sense from it.
Community in the States. That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to get your thoughts on something though. And this is a little off in a tangent here. What do you think about the impracticality of the punch guns that they use?
Oh, when they're in the theater and they're trying to assassinate Hitler?
Yeah, I don't understand why they need to use specifically these guns that are triggered when you punch somebody.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it almost seems like just a cool thing to add, but it kind of seemed to me like the idea was that they'll check you for weapons, although they don't actually show that. I think I got the idea that they would check you for weapons, at least the waiters, like they were pretending to be, so they had to conceal them. So that was an easier way to conceal them. That's the only thing I've thought of before in terms of that.
Yeah, and how is Hans Landa like the superior security officer, and like he's so scary and he's so good at like doing all this stuff, but yet he happens to just go along with having this film shown in this theater, and there's so many security holes there that he never picks up on. Yeah,
that's a good point. Well, you could say too, how much did he how much was he aware of what actually going on, and how much did he actually just ignore or let happen anyway? Because we find out later on that he did know some of what was happening, and he let it happen so that he could get out of the collapse of the Nazi regime, ideally without suffering any punishment. So maybe he just deliberately let some of those security holes slip, or I don't know, it could go either way.
He's got to know, because at the end of the scene where he's in the bar and he's kind of piecing together what happened at the bar there, you know, he sees everybody dead and he sees these Nazis that are dead that aren't actual Nazis. They're spies or part of the bastards. And then he goes and he picks up the napkin that has the autograph of what's her name?
Bridget von Hammersmark.
Yeah, and her lipstick on it, right? So he knows that she's going to, or she's been at the scene here, and he knows obviously a bunch of people were murdered. So, yeah, it's underlying, and you wonder if he actually knows that what's going on, not the whole time, you know, but if he knows what there's more going on, or what this whole premiere at this movie theater, and if he just lets it go. Also, I wanted to also mention that I think it's great that Hitler in this movie is kind of portrayed as just like a loser. I don't know. I get the feeling that he was just like he wasn't, you know, it's Hitler and people think he was such a mighty and evil guy, but yet he's kind of portrayed in this film as like a bumbling idiot and not really a strong force for Germany or whatever, you know what I mean? So I liked how Tarantino did that, though. He just kind of like, you know, kind of demises his character in a way.
Yeah, I think I kind of get the impression that he did that on purpose too. And the one scene where he has the most dialogue is when he gets all fucking crazy and angry, so he seems unstable too.
Yeah.
Well, what did he get mad about?
When he when it shows the bastards, they have those two survivors left after they've massacred a bunch of Nazis, and they try to get this general to show Aldo on a map where the next Nazi patrol is, how many of them there are, and what kind of firepower they have, and he refuses to do that. So I think one of them shoots him, and then the other guy, no, the Bear Jew beats him to death. That's when the Bear Jew beats him to death. And the other guy, he is the one who they let escape, because they always let one of them live so they can spread the word about how awful the Inglourious Basterds are, to spread their reputation. And he goes to see Hitler, and Hitler sees his swastika, and that makes him all mad because he really fucking hates those Inglourious Basterds. That's the one scene that makes him seem like the cartoonish supervillain. God damn, those guys did it again. They outsmarted me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys notice the little voice cameos in this too? That some of the one part of the exposition, it's the part where he's talking about how film, it used to be made of nitrate or ammonium nitrate, something like that, and he's explaining how explosive it is. So Shoshana has so much old film that she can blow up the theater using that. That's Samuel L. Jackson doing the voiceover, presumably because Quentin Tarantino loves Samuel L. Jackson. And then also there's that part when Hans Landa is on the phone and he's talking to Lieutenant Aldo Rain's superior. You only hear a little bit of his voice, but you can tell that it's Harvey Keitel talking to him too.
I never picked up on that before, but yeah, that's now that you say that, I remember those scenes. But yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I do remember the Sam Jackson part, but not the Harvey Keitel.
You can only hear him. I think you only hear him talk to Lieutenant Aldo Rain after Hans Landa talks to him, and he gives him the instructions of what to do. Yeah.
Aldo Rain, interesting character. I was just face palming when he was pretending to be an Italian.
yeah, that's another part of the comedy that's in it too.
Yeah, you could definitely tell that he was trying to pull off like a Godfather, stick at your chest type, like a, what's that actor, Al Pacino or whatever. That's
he just looked like he was constipated all the
time. Yeah, because he was like gritting his jaw throughout the entire movie, right?
I guess that was his character, but yeah, he had this constant face where he looks like he needed to take a shit.
Yeah.
I guess that was just him playing that character, but it definitely looked out of place.
Yeah. And he couldn't he couldn't sound any even vaguely Italian. Like, I think the only word he says is arrivederci, right? But he says like arrivederci.
Well, he says his name too. Like, he pronounces his name.
Yeah.
And I think he says grazie, but I think those are the only words he says.
Right. Yeah. And I like that other guy. I forget which one it is, but he's trying to get that Italian accent, and he says his name, and Hans Landa gets him to say it musically 3 times in a row. That part's funny too.
Yeah, it's funny when they're picking those guys too.
Like, he knows that they're basically like wolves in sheep's clothing. He's just playing with them at that point.
Yeah. And then later on in that part of the movie too, there's like what you and I were talking about before, Dusty, there's that sort of fucked up Cinderella story where he puts the he puts the high heel shoe on Bridget von Hammersmark, and he knows, oh, you're the one I have to kill, and then he kills her.
Yeah.
Oh, and he laughs like hell at her story.
Yeah, yeah, that part's funny too. He makes it so obvious that he thinks she's full of shit.
And the look on everyone's faces, they're like, this isn't very good here.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Yeah,
should have known that their cover was pretty much blown. Like the other guys was like, really? And the guys and Hans Landis was speaking Italian to them, so it would have been really obvious that Otto Haynes was an Italian.
yeah, that part was funny because Bridget von Hammersmark said, "Oh, no one will. Germans are bad with detecting Italian accent," and then of course Hans Lad is fluent in Italian, and they don't know what the fuck he's saying.
I like how they also picked when they were after she's getting her surgery on her leg or whatever, they're picking everybody that can speak Italian, and I like how he was like, and we'll take this guy because he knows how to speak Italian the third most, and he's like, I don't know how to speak Italian at all.
Yeah,
just don't say anything. Just don't shut your mouth.
yeah, exactly.
I think he's the only one that nails his name.
Yeah.
And the other two are totally. Well, I think Berju was like, he was kind of overly stereotypical.
Yeah.
And then the non-Italian who didn't know any Italian, he kind of sounded natural when he was saying it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, what are some of your guys' other favorite parts of the movie, or what else do you like about it?
I liked Hitler getting turned into a hamburger meat.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like it's like Hans Landa getting that swastika carved into his head at the end. He gives you that twisted sense of joy, a successful revenge film. And it's obviously it's a great vehicle for a revenge film to have a bunch of Jews going around and killing a bunch of Nazis being the main premise. Really easy premise for a revenge film.
It takes a really long time for the bear Jew to come out of his little hole.
Yeah, that's true. They really make that dramatic. I like that.
Yeah, it mixes like, for me, and this is going back to why I like the film, is there's been obviously a ton of movies that have come out around World War II and the Nazis and the Allies and everything like that. But this one is kind of like it takes it for a different look. It's obviously not true, but it's kind of more of a comedic take on, a film that in an era and a time where, so much war and lives were lost and that kind of stuff. And it's you can't say it's lighthearted because there's so much violence in the movie, but I don't know. It's fun to watch a wartime film that's not, like a Saving Private Ryan that's so serious and you're left kind of depressed after watching it. This one is like, you're kind of left with that, fuck yeah, we got the Nazis, he got the knife in the forehead afterwards. You're left with like this, hurrah, but a kind of a chuckle too. So yeah,
for sure.
Because I like war films I'm a big fan of war and historic films in general. So
yeah, for sure. Like I love standard war movies too. Like Saving Private Ryan is another one of my, I would say I have 5 favorite war movies. There would be Inglourious Basterds, Saving Private Ryan, Apocalypse Now for sure, and Wind Talkers is one that I watch a lot actually too, and Platoon of course too. And I think I would say that almost all of the rest of those, other than Apocalypse Now, are kind of like standard war movies. And I do love that sort of movie too, but I love the like totally doing it differently, like Quentin Tarantino does it here in Inglourious Basterds, and how Francis Ford Coppola does it in Apocalypse Now. It's really, like you said, it gives you that interesting feeling. It's not, especially in Inglourious Basterds, of course, it gives you, like, you come away like, fuck yeah, we got the Nazis, instead of being all depressed.
Didn't Christian Slater get beheaded in Wind Talkers
Yeah.
by a samurai sword?
Yep. Yeah, he does. He's the one who's sympathetic to the Navajo, and then I think that Nicolas Cage's character sort of learns from his sympathy after he gets beheaded, because it's like after that he's less discriminatory towards the Navajo and them being involved.
I forgot that Nicolas Cage was in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I. I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen. You mentioned Platoon. I'm like, oh yeah, I haven't seen Platoon in forever. That's one of those films that I definitely got to go back and watch again.
Yeah, for sure.
There's Commando.
Oh yeah, if you want to go with the Arnold War movie.
But yeah, there's a ton of war movies. It's like, Jesus, so many. But I'll say Saving Private Ryan basically set the stage for every video game depicting D-Day.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's so, like, no matter how many times you watch it, I mean, I don't know what war is actually like, but based on what it seems like war would actually be like, it seems profoundly realistic, or at least it's so fucking visceral, like that, like especially those parts where a grenade goes off near Tom Hanks's head and he loses his hearing, and you can see him getting shell shocked, or getting, like, that he has PTSD, and him having to get dragged back into reality a few times too.
Well, hasn't there been a bunch of veterans that have come forward and said that they found that Saving Private Ryan is as close to an actual war film as it gets, if it, like, not being a documentary, obviously. And I remember hearing when that came out that there was actually a bunch of veterans that couldn't watch that movie because it it kind of shell shocked them or brought them back to that time.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know that when the movie first came out in theaters, my grandpa was in World War II, but he was only a radio operator. But he thought that everyone should watch Saving Private Ryan because it shows you the terrors of war and what it's truly like.
Yeah, well, at least war back then, war now, it's just getting blown up by a robot in the sky.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're throwing a lot of bodies at each other. Even worse is World War One. That one's even more insane.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. That seems like that was the most brutal, or at least one of them. Like I believe Dan Carlin thinks so, and he has that awesome series Blueprint for Armageddon, where I'm pretty sure he talks in the series about how he thinks that's the most brutal war. Partially, one of the major reasons was it was sort of like a transition between the old way of fighting wars and the new way of fighting wars. So they would still line up as if the way that people would fight with swords or would fight with, like, really rudimentary rifles, but that really didn't work for trench warfare or the other new types of technology that they were using, like when they had the first types of tanks. And then there was all this stuff that was so different about the different countries involved, and America not getting involved until later in the war, and I'm sure a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm forgetting about too. That's a great series that he does.
Well, one interesting thing to put it in perspective, there were armies that were still using cavalry units with breastplates and swords.
Right. Yeah. See, that's like bound to get you fucking killed. basically.
This is before mechanized combat was a thing, so there were a lot of people still using old technology. But yeah, it was just people bombing each other to hell with artillery and shooting each other up from machine gun nests.
And I think it wasn't until after World War One that the Geneva Convention basically outlawed biological warfare, which was used heavily in World War One, like mustard gas, for example, right?
Yeah, gas warfare got outlawed after the First World War. But they
Yeah.
still use gas in gas chambers, but just not on the battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the gas chambers were still, of course, all that Nazi concentration camp stuff was violation of.
Yeah, they didn't care about violating international law.
No. Have you ever seen the documentary, or the new documentary, "They Shall Not Grow Old" by Peter Jackson? Have you
No,
seen it?
I haven't.
Yeah, anyway, he takes all this World War One footage and he totally remasters it all into like HD, so you actually can see World War One footage in high definition. But one of the things that is really profound in there, it's just like the living conditions of those soldiers back in World War One. Not so much on the American side, but like the Russians, they didn't have uniforms for half their guys, or like, they had one gun between five guys, and
set it up is crazy. Like,
yeah,
all of their units, one person had a gun, and if that person died, the backup had to pick up the dead guy's gun and continue.
Yeah, so just the conditions alone for World War One, was atrocious. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that to that extent and to that level of detail. Yeah, that's terrible. And like one of the things I've thought about before too is maybe more so in World War One than World War Two. The idea, like one of the things, one of the aspects of being a soldier, especially then, that sounds like it would fucking suck to me, is like when you're in a group of other soldiers and you're going deep into enemy territory, you're going to basically be homeless for a long period of time and having to scavenge for food or stuff like that.
Yeah, that's basically what they had to do. Like if they weren't using good supply lines, they had to basically pillage from the inhabitants and things like that. But what the Russians did is on their retreat, they were burning their own villages. So they were destroying their own villages and crops in order to leave nothing for the Germans who were advancing.
Yeah. A lot of these guys didn't know how to live on their own either. I mean, World War One, World War Two, you were probably drafted around your 18, 19 years old or super young. Some of them lied, were 16 and said they were 18s, right? So here you are, 18 to 20 years old, going out into the wilderness for the first time. You got to learn how to cook for yourself. You got to learn how to, keep your socks dry, boots in order, laundry, all these things they kind of had to do on their own and learn how to do it at the same time too. Keep your gun clean, all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
I know when the Germans started running out of eligible soldiers, they did start to dip into adolescents.
Mm-hmm.
Like they started drafting, like I think as low as 12 years old kids.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, the Germans in World War One were sending literally like teens out there.
Oh wow!
Because they were fighting in two fronts. They were fighting the Russians, and they were fighting like the Western powers.
Right.
So, they were getting eaten up pretty quickly, so they had to really grab the youngsters in the population. They were like really devastated after the war.
Yeah, for sure. And the Germans also, I think I just heard this recently, that the Germans also near the end of the war, they were destroying their towns and cities and their military equipment too, so the Allies couldn't capture it when they captured where they were.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they all did that. But what the Germans had the help from the Ottomans, but the French had their colonies too, and they were bringing in North Africans, and I think the British were bringing in Indians. So, but the Germans didn't have that kind of empire pool that the Western powers had, and they didn't have that throw them in the meat grinder mentality that the Russians had.
Right.
So they had to like really contend with that, and they weren't able to keep up.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think the original plan was like the war wasn't supposed to be more than a couple months, and they kind of totally overshot that mark.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But they still, and it was, that's partially why it was due to a lot of really easy to avoid strategic mistakes that Hitler made, that are why the Russians beat the Germans so much worse than they would have otherwise.
Well, one of the things I was reading is just Hitler didn't understand. Like, all of his generals understood what was going on, but Hitler would give them ridiculous orders that they had to follow.
Yeah, that's what I was reading about in that book. I think I told you about that. I read about this recently.
Like, the problem was like they gave Hitler a lot of sway in strategy, and he didn't know shit about anything militarily. And like, even if they were losing, he was like, "Oh, I expect everyone to fight down to the last man." And like the other generals, like, "Well, we could just retreat and regroup." And he's like, "No." And he kind of had like this religious type of fervor, like the Third Reich cannot be beaten type of attitude. So even if his generals were like, "Oh no, there's no way we can win this particular battle," Hitler was like, "Oh no, we're the Third Reich, we can't lose."
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that that I was reading about too. That Hitler, he just like had this delusional sense of grandeur, so he made all these military mistakes, and his generals knew that they were bad decisions, but they were afraid to defy his authority, partially because that could conceivably get you killed, right?
Yeah, for sure. He had to do what he said. It didn't matter. Like, they wouldn't even bring up their opposition to his orders. Like, they would talk about it privately about how stupid it was, which is why so many generals like plotted against him because they thought he was a danger. Because there were quite a few generals that actually like plotted to assassinate him. And there are like many different attempts. I know the book I read, there are at least 4 major ones that he escaped from like different generals. So yeah, he was a ridiculous person that didn't really know what he was doing militarily.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
Yep, I can confirm he was a ridiculous person.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, he was an asshole.
Yeah, that's for sure. Did you guys see a video that I posted on? I think I posted it on the Mixed Mental Arts and Unstructured groups recently, about this documentary about the drugs that Hitler and the Nazis were on.
No, but I've heard that they were on different kind of like amphetamines and uppers to keep them going, and apparently they were cokeheads too.
Yeah, that's basically what they talked about in the documentary, that Hitler was on a pill that was the equivalent of crystal meth, basically, and a bunch of other Nazis started taking it too, not just in the high command, but one of the examples they gave was that soldiers in tanks would take it so that they could keep just taking these drugs and go on long missions for 3 days in a row. And then eventually the same doctor who prescribed that to Hitler, who became his own private doctor, also invented this pill that was a combination of heroin and cocaine, and Hitler started taking that too. So he was basically on the equivalent of crystal meth, heroin, and cocaine, and some other Nazis too, but they experimented with using this on some regular Nazi soldiers before a particular mission, and it backfired because they were just so fucked up that they didn't know what they were doing. So it ended up being mostly just Hitler who was on that many different kinds of drugs.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, especially in wartime. I mean, yeah, you gotta be like stressed, and you always gotta be. Well, I'm sure you're awake all the time too. And the other thing is I'm finding out now that as I get older and doing reading that apparently every leader is on some type of amphetamines these days. Like Trump is on Sudafed, and who else was on drugs? Wasn't who's the guy that the guy that was the president that was first impeached? I forget his name. Nixon. Apparently Nixon was on a bunch of drugs too. And the Kennedys were huge cokeheads or something like that. I don't know. Could all be speculation, but I'm now finding out that if you're a leader of a country, you have to be on some kind of drugs.
Yeah,
well, Kennedy was probably on some form of uppers because I know he had like some really crazy health issues. So
yeah,
he probably was on uppers.
Yeah, Kennedy he was on something for sure. I forget where I was just hearing this. Maybe it was Carlene who was talking about it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I hadn't heard that about JFK and Nixon before, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, it's a stressful job, even if you take like these days the president. You know, you've got so many decisions to make. People are always dying on your watch. Yeah, you know.
Well, that makes you wonder, right? Like how many students at Harvard and Yale, like what's the percentage of students that are on Adderall?
Yeah.
Which is basically like legal speed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was thinking about that when I was watching that documentary about the drugs that the Nazis were on. Like, that sounds like university students today.
Yeah, well, same kind of thing. They're under huge pressure and stress and always trying to... Yeah, these guys were on drugs for sure, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I said something in my post about that, something like it wasn't the drugs that made the Nazis crazy. With Hitler, for example, he had delusional fantasies and he had legitimate psychological problems, which were exacerbated by all these drugs and made him more fucked up, I'm sure. And so extreme mental problems plus a bunch of fucked up drugs equals bumbling, rampaging insanity.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was also.
Did you ever watch that movie, The Downfall, or whatever it's called?
I don't think so.
No.
It's that movie where everyone dubs and subtitles when Hitler's screaming at something. Like he's always screaming about some stupid pop culture thing going wrong.
Oh, those YouTube videos that they make them about any subject. Like I think I saw one about powerlifting.
Yeah, that is the movie that originates from is called Downfall.
Oh, okay.
But it's basically a movie that's all about Hitler and his crazy outbursts.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a good movie.
I think it's on Netflix. I might be mistaken.
Oh, that reminds me. I was just thinking as you were describing that Peter Jackson documentary, Chris, is that maybe one that I saw that is on Netflix? It's like a documentary series that recently was released on there.
No, it's not a series. It's a movie. And actually, I was just reading on Reddit the other day that it came out to Blu-ray or DVD or whatever, or streaming services. But they're actually bringing it back into theater again to do another release, because I think it was only into limited theaters the first time around. I don't know if it's on Netflix though. I remember I had to download it or whatever to watch it, but yeah, it's really good. It's worth watching. It's kind of sad, just watching these guys just.
And you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it.
Are there any videos of people with shell shock?
In the movie?
Yeah, in the documentary.
I don't think so. It's more of like a it's
Because shell shock is the term for PTSD that was coined from the First World War.
Okay.
It's like a very extreme form of PTSD.
Yeah, and then the term changed later on, right?
Yeah, it went from shell shock to battle fatigue. It's changed. I think Dan Carlin has a bit about it.
Yeah.
Not Dan Carlin, George Carlin.
Oh yeah, that's true, right? Yeah, he said he has a bit about how the term has changed.
Yeah. It started with shell shock, and then it's morphed, and then it's gotten more complicated as it's gone along to post-traumatic distress syndrome or whatever it's called now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Someone in the live chat who I think is trolling wants us to talk about Sharia law or the gays.
I'm not sure what that has to do with Inglourious Basterds.
It has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Sharia law for the gays?
Yeah.
Why would we want to talk about that?
I don't know. Either they're trolling, or maybe they have a problem with Sharia law and the gays, or they like them. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
Well, I don't know why they would care, because nowhere in the Western world is that really practiced.
No.
Hot button issues. Oh yeah, I see it now. Yeah. I would definitely say that's a troll.
Yeah. They're commenting, especially because they're commenting incessantly.
A troll or a Russian? It's a Russian bot.
Oh yeah, it could be a Russian bot. I'm sure Russia cares so much about my podcast that has my YouTube channel that has 89 subscribers.
In a chat about a movie, Quentin Tarantino movie too.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Andrew, whatever happened to your brownie project?
Oh, it takes forever to collect the ash from that, and plus, sometimes I get too baked and then I spill the container. I haven't spilled the entire contents, but I've spilled a little bit of it.
I'm telling you, man, you make a video about that, you're gonna get tons of views.
Yeah, I should do that.
Does Chris know what we're talking about here?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Why don't you tell him?
No, you tell him. You tell him the big idea.
Oh, well, Dusty wants me to collect the ash from me smoking weed and eventually collect enough to make brownies with it and see if they're still effective. And then make a video with me trying and see how effective they are.
Bong water brownies is the...
Yeah.
Well, let me know when you're gonna stream that. 'Cause I'll definitely watch you eating them. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think because Here's what happened. Here's what happened. I wanted to see someone eating them, but nowhere on YouTube could I find anyone making bong water brownies. So I'm like, if he did that, he'd probably get a lot of hits.
Yeah.
And in the right context, you could probably make it go viral.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like just produce it pretty well. Just put some background music. I guess you would probably have to edit it. If you need help with that, I could help you. But I think it.
Yeah, because I was thinking I would probably editing it together as one video would probably be better than me making one video where
No, you definitely don't want to make one video. So you're just going to record. You can record a bunch of different things, and then you just string them together.
Yeah.
Edit.
I don't think.
Here's me putting it in the oven. Here's me cutting them up.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's me about to take a bite.
That troll in the comments just said America loves the gays.
I don't think you get high off of it though if you're to do that.
That's an experiment. I think it would be funny to approach it like the scientific method. Here's my hypothesis, and then here's the experiment.
Yeah.
If you had a lab coat, that'd be even funnier.
Yeah, that would be funnier. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And make sure your hair is all messed up like Einstein or something.
Oh yeah. I might get a haircut soon, but maybe I should wait for that. Well, it'll still take me a while to collect.
To accumulate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Especially enough to make brownies or something like that.
Yeah. You need a lot for that. I've never made them before, so I don't even actually know exactly how much I would need.
Well, it's the butter. That's what you want to do. Like for brownies or for cookies or whatever, you make it out of weed. You make the butter out of weed, and then you add that into the same way.
Oh, okay.
Even the amount that you need to make like a dozen cookies, you still need like a good. Well, if you want to make good ones, a good pound or so, right? Your bong ash, you might need a few.
It's water.
It's gonna take years.
The residue mixed with the water, because if a brownie recipe would call for water if you're making those instant brownies, so you would just substitute the regular water with the infused bong water.
Right.
Epstein didn't kill himself. Did you see that one? Upside down.
Which one? Oh, someone wrote that?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he did. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Didn't he try to kill himself though? He did try to commit suicide, didn't he?
Yeah, that's correct.
And the two guards, I'm a guard, so I can understand how shitty a guard can be. And that sounds like something a shitty guard would do. It would be to falsify records and not do what they're supposed to do. So it sounds plausible to me, that particular part.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. There's so much that went wrong with that, where it's I could see why people put on their tinfoil hats and go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I think it's because he
Oh, I think your audio just got cut out, Dusty. I don't know what to think about the whole Epstein thing. It's there's so many fucking suspicious things that happened, and it's so easy to believe that it was a conspiracy to murder him, but I still don't know one way or the other, because I don't know who to believe or what evidence to believe or not to believe. And also, like, if he did get murdered, then who murdered him? There are many different possibilities.
I know it's yeah, it honestly, that one is more, it's harder to not be a conspiracy theorist about it. I find like nobody's actually like, yeah, he didn't kill him, or he did kill himself. It was legit. Like the amount of people that actually say that, like even Michael Shermer came out and said that, scratched his head about this one, and he's like the head of Skeptic magazine.
Yeah, he
He's
doesn't
probably
believe any
he
conspiracy.
doesn't believe anything, and he even
Yeah.
said, okay, this is kind of weird. But yeah, he tried to kill himself before. Yeah, I was listening. Who was I listening to? Charlie. I was listening to Charlie Kirk's take on it, who's like a right wing guy, and he said that he actually believes that Epstein killed himself because he used to be a guard as well, and you know the amount of surveillance that those guys are under. You know, it is possible to kill yourself in those conditions. It's just, yeah. Such a high profile guy like he was, and you know the amount of dirt he had on the Clintons and the Prince Andrew, and it's just, it's easy to put your tinfoil hat on and go for a run. You know, it's
I'm sure it's not quite the level of conspiracy theory of what Alex Jones says, which I think is the equivalent of like, not only is there a child molester, a secret child molester ring with a whole bunch of powerful people involved, but they're actually under control of the interdimensional alien child molesters. Or
yeah, no, it doesn't go that ridiculous, but yeah, it's definitely it's one that more people should be talking about and going back and forth though, and it's kind of was just looked over real quick, and some people are still talking about it, but it's only podcasters and underground media. It's funny how, and that reporter woman who said we had all that whole story for 3 years she sat on when that was leaked. Yeah, that's another head scratcher too. So yeah,
definitely
something's going on there. Deep state is yeah.
I think I forget who said this. It might have been on a Joe Rogan podcast where Joe said this. I think he said that this is going to be the new JFK. We'll never really know what happened.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, again, JFK, you know, when all this, like when Oswald was killed right after that, and then Jack Ruby was killed right after that, you know, the same kind of thing. All these things just happen right after he was assassinated. It's just like, it seems too good to be true. So I think the same with Epstein, where you have such a high profile murder case and so many things underlying it. It's easy to be like, okay, you know, something else is going on here.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
who knows? Like the big thing for me is, even if he was murdered and it was made to look like a suicide, who the fuck killed him? Like, there are people who think it was the Clintons. It could be the royal British family. Apparently Trump also knew him too. I mean, I don't know. It could be any combination of those people, really, or it could be one person, or who knows.
Yeah, it could be like the Saudis for all we know.
Yeah. There's that thing where he had a Saudi passport, I think, right?
And not just that. I mean, we've seen the Saudis within the last couple of years. Like the Jamal Khashoggi is a perfect example of how they, you know, if they want to get rid of evidence or kill somebody, you know, they just got to walk into an embassy and do it. So who's to say they could hire somebody to make those guards walk away and Epstein is accidentally dead 2 minutes later, right? So
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it could be anybody with any money or anything to lose that Epstein would have known about, not just the prince or the Clintons, but yeah, the Saudi prince maybe, or who knows.
Yeah, I mean, America is definitely Saudi Arabia's bitch. So.
Yeah, America.
Yeah, was it Tulsi Gabbard who said that? Something like that.
That's
I
probably
think she
she's.
said that about Trump.
Oh yeah, yeah, that would make more sense coming from her. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Who knows? Well, I'm glad that we also talked about some interesting topics that we hadn't planned, which we always do, which I like.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up Chris said something that sounded like very Peterson-like. I
Yeah,
can't remember. It was not ideologically.
you mean like
Like,
mythologically?
no, like pronunciations that Canadians say.
Oh, what was it?
Um, it was two words, but the second word was out, and it sounded like he said oot.
Oot.
Sometimes when I say about, I say like a boat a little
Yeah.
bit. Not a boot, but a boat.
Yeah,
Well, that
we
sounds like an Irish person
get
or a Scottish person.
Yeah, that's true.
possibly. I do say a lot.
I've started deliberately saying that more often lately because for a long time I was saying hey instead, but then I figured I shouldn't be embarrassed about my Canadian culture. I should embrace
Embrace
it.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. We don't have that much of our own kind of. Everything is stolen from other cultures, like every kind of society, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
But that's I think that's the Canadian thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
you
know,
know, eh?
yeah. A and a boot, and yeah.
Yeah. I forget what it was, but I posted something about Canadians on I think the mixed mental arts group, and the one guy jokingly asked me, "When you talk too fast, what do you do to avoid half of your head flying off?" Because it was a South Park reference,
Mm,
and the Canadians in South Park have flap heads that
that's it.
flap on, like their top half of their head flaps around when they talk.
Yeah, that's right.
And I said,
oh,
I just have to make sure I hold it down when I talk really quickly.
like what's that? The fart group from Canada.
Oh, Terrence and Phillip.
There you go, like
Yeah.
them.
Hey, buddy. Hey, guy.
Yeah, good old South Park making us look bad.
Yeah. They make everyone look bad. They're
Oh, I know.
experts at that.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, they don't make anyone look good, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we can end it here then, unless you guys want to talk about anything else.
No, I'm good with that. I gotta go to the bathroom anyway, so.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for watching another Mindgasms movie chat, and this one on Inglourious Basterds, and of course our other talk about war and war movies and Jeffrey Epstein too, which is interesting. Thanks to all of you who subscribe to my channel, like this video, share it, comment on the video, and especially to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I always appreciate. And I'll put the link for that in the description of this video, like I always do. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. And also appreciate the glorious Nazi killing in Inglourious Basterds. So, any last words there, guys?
Glad to have participated in the chat today, and I'll just say, everyone out there, be a inglorious bastard,
Yeah.
but don't punch a Nazi.
Yeah, don't punch Nazis.
Just just debate with them and make them look stupid.
Yes. Well said. Be more like Daryl Davis.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and have a good night, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving if you're in the United States, and yeah.
That's next week, right, Dusty?
That's this Thursday.
It's this
Yeah.
Thursday. Okay. All right. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, Americans. Americans.
America.
Yeah. America. Yeah. America.
American?
Fuck yeah.
Aren't you North American?
I'm North American. Yeah. Chris is too.
Dad is American.
We're back up in
You're
Canada, and yeah, I'm technically half American because my dad was born there.
I am half American, actually. I was born in Texas, and then I moved up here, so I'm dual. I'm half Canadian, half American.
Oh, okay. Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
2 passports.
full American.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. Thanks, guys, and thanks again, everyone, for watching. And adios until next time.
Peace.